Well, let's go to politics for a few minutes. We have John Cox on the line, who will be running for the governorship of the state of California, which is a very big deal because the Democrat machine is putting forward a candidate named Gavin Newsom, and he's a shoo-in, so they think. But John did very well in the primaries. John Cox, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Hey, Michael. Great to be with you.
John, in the primaries, what percent of the vote did you attract?
I think it was about 27 by the last count. They're still counting votes. You know, they got a whole bunch.
All right, so you got 27%, but some other Republican candidates got like 13 and 5%, didn't they?
One guy got about 9%, 9 or 10%, yeah.
All right, so let's say we add the 9 or 10 to your 27. You now have 37. What's going to happen if you run straight up against Newsom? How can you get Republicans to even care? Because most of them are defeated and think you can't win.
Well, don't forget, there's a whole bunch of decline the state voters. And, Michael, there are a whole bunch of Democrats, too, that are sick and tired of the management of the state. This state is basically unaffordable for most people. 2/3, 70% of people in the state are looking to get the heck out because.
Wait. You come on, John. You can't fix that. You're not going to change housing prices. No candidate can do that.
Oh, yes, I can. I'll tell you what. First of all, we're going to repeal the gas tax. That's going to be on the ballot. I led that effort. And we're going to bring down the cost of gasoline with that. We're going to get rid of some of these ridiculous rules, by the way, as well, along with it.
Wait. Let's start from the top. Let's say you can motivate the silent majority in California, the people who actually vote and pay taxes, not the illegal aliens and the radicals who vote for Democratic candidates. The state is projected to have a multi-billion-dollar surplus. Why is Jerry Brown not returning that to the people he took it from, meaning the high earners? Why is he not returning any of that money to us?
Because he wants to buy votes with that money. He wants to hand out more and more money to the constituencies to buy votes. He doesn't care about the people who work every day. He doesn't care about the people who are paying $5 a gallon for gasoline. He just cares about making sure that his Democrats can buy votes, and that's what they're doing with it.
But if you were governor, let's say you won the election. Let's say you pull off a long-shot victory and you win the election. What would you do with the top 1% of earners, of which I am a member, in the state, who are thinking of leaving because I won't pay any more of these exorbitant criminal taxation? I'm paying 13 to 15% state tax. You know that, John.
And it's not deductible, Michael. I know that, too.
That is right. Trump eliminated the deductions for us in California and in New York State. What would you do for us? I'm talking about this one demographic.
I am going to start spending money efficiently. This budget is easy.
Wait. But you're not answering my question. Would you lower the tax burden on the top 1%?
I'm going to lower taxes across the board. We're going to get rid of the gas tax. That's a given. But we're also going to spend money efficiently. Michael, this budget...
No, but you're still not answering my question. Lowering taxes across the board, John, is wonderful. But I'm talking about those of us who were hit the hardest, and that's a discriminatory taxation. Don't you think we deserve a tax break immediately?
40 to 50% of the income tax is paid by people who are making a lot of money. You're absolutely right. So if I cut taxes, if I cut the income tax rate from 13% down to 8 or 7 or 6, that's going to be a tax break for those people in those brackets. But
so you're saying you would cut the state tax? Wait, you would say you'd cut the state tax to 8% or 7% across the board, is what you're saying?
All the way down across the board, though. I mean,
well, that makes sense. I understand. That would be so great. California would boom. We'd have the biggest boom in history.
Hey, listen, Michael. Florida and Texas have no state income tax at all. California has more oil, more cattle than Texas. We have more tourism and more retirees than Florida. How is it that they are able to fund their budgets? Because they have better political management. Our political management is all about corruption and buying votes and handing out money to the funders who fund the campaigns. That's what's going to change.
What about all the services that go to illegal aliens in this state? Why are we providing billions of dollars to illegal aliens other than to get them to vote Democrat? So how are you going to motivate the Republicans to come out and vote who have given up? How are you going to motivate the independents, John, to vote? How?
First of all, our polling tells me that I'm getting all Republicans. What I have to do is I have to get decline the states and a lot of Democrats. And I'm going to get those, Michael, because they're sick of paying almost $5 a gallon for gasoline. They're sick of driving on crappy roads that are full of potholes and are crowded. They're sick of paying rent, $3,000 a month for a cracker box, one-bedroom apartment.
I don't think you're going to. No, you can't control that. That's market-driven. But you certainly can change the tax base. But look at the top of the newspaper in the city that I live in, San Francisco. Am I in the bad part of town? Tourists shocked by SF streets with drug needles on BART, drug needles in the street, bums out of control, violence, crime wave. What would you do about the bums in the streets of San Francisco, John?
Absolutely clean it out, by the way, and not going to put up with it. We got to enforce vagrancy laws. We got to get people help that are strung out on drugs and alcohol. We've got to make sure that we have homes that are built that are cost affordable. I'm in the housing business, Michael. I build apartments for $80,000 a unit in Indiana. Here in the Bay Area, it's $700,000, and it's not the land. The land is part of it, but the regulations, the litigation.
So the union regulations, the red tape, the handouts to all of the departments in the city, it drives. How much do you build them for in Indiana?
$80,000 a door, and you could build them. The price of land is more expensive in here, no question. But you could build apartments for $200,000 to $300,000, where they're now spending $500,000 to $600,000, because a lot of that is based upon regulations and litigations and a lot of.
That's a very good selling point, John. That's a great selling point. I think that makes sense. But what would you do about the bums in the streets who basically rule the streets? They're out of control in San Francisco. They're out of control in the city. They're out of control in many cities. But in San Francisco, John, they're out of control. They're violent, many of them. They're not just poor, downtrodden, homeless people. Many of them belong in a nut house.
A lot of them are strung out on drugs. A lot of them are alcoholics. And a lot of them are mentally ill. We got to get help to people. It is not compassionate to let people keep shooting up on the streets or just living in a box or some kind of tent on the street. That's not compassion. Compassion is actually doing something about it. So I don't want government warehousing them. I want to use private agencies, religious groups, non-religious groups, NGOs, groups that are dedicated to making sure these people get from addiction to being
John, you do have a plan. How long has it been since we've had a Republican governor in California?
Well, Schwarzenegger was nominally a Republican. I'm not sure he was a strong Republican.
No, he turned over. His chief of staff was a lifetime Democrat. I forget her name, but she was a lifetime Democrat. His wife was a Democrat. Schwarzenegger was a fake Republican. Would you be more like a Reagan-like governor or more like a Schwarzenegger governor?
Reagan, all the way. I was on Jack Kemp's steering committee back in '87. That's the Reagan message. Entrepreneurship, individual responsibility, free markets, giving people a hand up, but not a hand out, Michael.
All right, so we would go back from being the man with the golden arm to the man with the golden state. And I want everyone to listen because John Cox is running against Gavin Newsom, who is allegedly a shoo-in as a Democrat candidate of choice, the machine candidate. John is the underdog. If everyone listening to the show wants the state to be righted, maybe they ought to think about an alternative to the machine candidate. John Cox, will be hearing a lot more from you before the election. I want to thank you for being with us on the Savage Nation.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be with you. Let's do it again.
All right. See, that was a nice interview, short and sweet. And at least the man answered questions. He didn't weasel around it. Now, I would like to have Gavin Newsom on the show. I'd like to ask him the same questions. What would he do with the junkies? What would he do with the drug needles in the street? What would he do with the cost of living? I wonder, maybe he has an answer. I kind of don't think so. They have the same old answer, which is more taxation without